Now that Biden has secured a really massive, just enormous lead over Sanders, you have a lot of people who are speculating as to who the vice presidential candidate will be, and it has often been offset by comments of the need for it to be a woman. You know, we need to have our first female, well, not first female presidential candidate on a major party ticket because we had Geraldine Ferraro, but the need to have a woman as vice president. And I was getting pretty disgusted by these comments because one of the things I give Republicans credit for is they know how to not say the quiet part out loud. So when Obama ran for president in 2008, you did not have him or pretty much anyone that was in a serious capacity in his campaign going, oh, it's time for the first African American, because they knew that one of the things Americans are not all that turned on by is identity politics. The idea that someone has to fit a certain predetermined category to be considered uh, applicable for a position. Just to give you an example, I'm talking about when I first got into politics. This was in 2013, late 2013. This was a time when the Democrats controlled the presidency and the Senate. And between that time frame of the 2012 election and the one that we had this past, the 2016 one, there was a lot of speculation about what the Republicans would do to win back the presidency and how they couldn't just keep appealing to white men and, blah, 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 blah. Now, as many of you might know, Trump was able to get, what was it, 30% of Hispanics to vote for him, and a very disturbingly large number of women as well. And I'm bringing it up to say that I can remember very vividly during the previous primary, so the 2016 Democratic primary, that have featured people like myself, Cenk Uygur from TYT, even Bernie, the candidate, just all of us getting, whenever we would express opposition to Clinton on her record, told, well, why are you opposed to the first viable woman who could become president? It was the strangest thing because it felt like a deliberate attempt to distract from policy, to hide behind the neoliberal centric views of this candidate by mentioning the fact that they had a vagina. And it would be so simple because I don't want this to appear a way that would seem offensive. And what I mean by that is I do get where after 200 years of men as vice president, one would hope that we would get a female. And there are a lot of progressive chicks that I think would serve very well in that position, whether it's Gabbard, Nina Turner, um, Talib, just I can name multiple ones, Jayapal. But one of the progressives I really like, and it's been no secret, is Ro Khanna. And I have mentioned how I think out of any of the progressives that are in Congress, so the people that are still considered progressive, I know a lot of people would now call Warren just a regular Democrat, but out of any of the House Democrats, certainly, I think he's had the most collaborations with Sanders in legislation. I think he is able to articulate Sanders' message in a way that you don't often get from a lot of the other surrogates. And to see him not be considered in the running for VP because he doesn't have a vagina actually really bothers me. And just keep this in mind. I was able to list off 4 different women who I think would be very good and would have no problem voting for his VP under a Sanders ticket. So this isn't coming from some position of I want to keep the patriarchy going. No, I really like Roe. I think he is very underappreciated, and I think if he had the position of VP, whether that was on a ticket with Biden or Sanders, it would certainly raise his national profile, kind of like with Paul Ryan, where he was picked while he was in the House for, to be on the ticket with Romney. But I'm saying that it's really disturbing to basically watch someone like that, who I think has proven himself to be able to articulate a lot of progressive ideas in a way that's not controversial seems very centrist and kind of less radical in the way from his tone and way of describing it. That person won't be considered for this position because they don't have the right genitals. And I guess what is so disturbing is I try to explain that if people would just be slick about this, right? So let's say Sanders has a short list of people for VP, and every single one on there except for Roe is a woman. Well, that would serve the same effect if he picks anyone else on that list that's not Roe. But it would not appear to be overtly sexist, because this is another common thing that people don't seem to get when they start playing these stupid games. When you actively say for some position, right, that this person must be this ethnicity or this gender, and usually they say female because they try to play into the whole, oh, the struggle of women and all that. You're not doing the people who might get that position any favors. When Sanders was doing the debate with Biden and he said that he would look to women first and he wanted a progressive one, I had a lot of respect for him for saying that, because he refused to jump on the identity politics bandwagon of declaring that whoever my VP is will have a taco, while also saying that if he does pick someone who is female, they will have the same positions. That's a lot better than Biden going, I just know that whoever it is will be a woman, because now that opens, it's really funny for the Democrats to talk about how they have all these different women in their, party. And because he won't actually list any particular policy they must support, people have just been throwing out all kind of names. Like, people were saying, oh, if he wants to really make amends with progressives, he's going to put Tulsi as his VP or Nina Turner. No, he's not picking either one of them. The best we can hope for, and I said before, people can get upset if they want to, the best one that we can get, in my opinion, is Harris. Because unlike Warren, she doesn't have the baggage of doing tremendous, or attempting to do tremendous damage to Sanders' campaign by making lies up about him being sexist, among other things. And I just think she's a much more savvy politician that would be more likely to pull the administration, again, out of the people who realistically have a chance of getting picked. All this talk about Abrams, nobody knows anything about that. No one knows a single thing about that damn lady other than her name and what state she ran for governor in. She gave a crappy State of the Union speech, or State of the Union response, excuse me. And she's basically just been sitting around, just people like that. They throw her name out like candy. Oh, Sanders might pick her now. Jesse Jackson has joined his campaign. He wants to pick a black woman. Like, and again, I do understand where, in being someone who's progressive and I guess endorsing Harris for Biden's VP, I would appear to be, the villain. But when you have progressive commentators kind of like conceding the need for how it makes sense that the person getting picked would be a woman, they kind of shoot themselves in the foot, because unfortunately, a lot of these chicks, just like a lot of these males who are in politics, have blind spots. One horrific blind spot for Harris is criminal justice reform. But you don't see any progressive saying, oh, I hope Biden reverses his pledge to pick a woman and goes for Booker, because they're pissed off at him, rightfully so, for bootlicking for Israel and, taking 200,000 from Big Pharma. The point I'm making is, certain issues might seem like people are really bothered by them until they aren't, and until you see the actual things they say and do, which conflict with what they're trying to convince you of. So I was really disturbed that people are trying to make this vice presidential pick about gender. And again, the candidates have themselves to blame, because Biden buckled under pressure and they tried to get Sanders to do the same thing. And he just kind of said, I'll go in that direction. It really gets on my nerves. And that's kind of why, in a sick, twisted way, I almost would have preferred if the nominee had been Like if we can't have Gabbard, then maybe one of the other chicks that ran, because at the very least, no one would say, you must pick a woman on your running mate as your running mate, because they would have one on the top of the ticket. They'd be fine with that because they don't actually care about policy. They just want to sit there and use someone's gender as an excuse to have a crappy candidate. So when you have people who look at that ticket and say, wow, this man really just went with the times and buckled under pressure. It's like, that's a leader. Biden had kept to his guns and said, I will pick whoever's the most qualified. I would have more respect for him, because you can't let the voters force you to abandon your core belief system. So that was one of the reasons that I was really upset with Buddha Trash, because he was, talking about how he backed Medicare for all, and then he found out the progressives weren't going from the numbers he wanted, so he switched to being a moderate. Um, so yeah, it's sad. I wish people would actually look at what a candidate stands for as opposed to their genitalia. I would hope we would get some change in ideology, not in what's in between someone's legs.